So welcome to the 2021 Springfield College Occupational Therapy Department Colloquium. These students that you'll be seeing here have worked hard and long, starting and through the spring semester of 2020. They were first researching literature, then they were writing caps or cats, and that has nothing to do with headdress or pets, followed by a summary table of their literature. They then came back together in the fall, and we will hear of their next steps that they took to completion. We all have access to their posters on the website and their group names and the schedule. But the students will be screen sharing PowerPoint, so just stay on Zoom, and that's probably the best. I believe some, maybe many of the students are a little bit nervous today, but they are all happy to present their accomplishments. And I know I'm looking forward to it, and I know the faculty is looking forward to it. And Kathy Post just jumped on. I think she is looking forward to it. And so are all the students and family and friends. And take it away, group one. So group one, you know the routine.
I'm going to be sharing.
Oh, wait a minute.
Screen.
Sorry, I want to add. Students, please remember to unmute yourselves and give us a hello. And audience, you are invited to ask questions in the chat, and the group's advisors will take it from there. So audience, please feel welcome to ask some questions. Just put it in the chat. Thanks. All right, group one, go ahead. Sorry.
Can I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. Can you guys see that?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. All right. So we are group one, and our research project was virtual reality impact on IADL function and stroke therapy.
So within our group, my name is Rosalie Bowman.
My name is Kendra Casero.
I'm Peter D'Amato.
And I'm Casey Jimenez. So to start off, as stroke is one of the leading causes of disability in the United States, it is important to develop effective and efficient rehabilitation programs to encourage individuals to perform the skills needed in order to participate in their occupational roles. In order to do so, interventions need to be purposeful and engaging. There are currently many programs and themes for individuals who have experienced stroke. However, more recently, virtual reality methods of stroke care have been used in order to individualize interventions and make them more purposeful for each individual person. Therefore, we've decided to pose the research question. In recent stroke patients between ages 18 to 80, what is the effect of virtual reality training on IADL function? IADLs consist of activities that allow a person to live independently within the community. Increased IADL performance may significantly impact the client's quality of life in a positive manner. Examples of IADLs can include managing finances, community mobilization, shopping, meal preparation, medication management, and home maintenance activities. Overall, the purpose of our study is to find insight and to examine the use of perceived benefits of virtual reality as an occupational therapy intervention within the adult population who have experienced a stroke.
So in order to help answer our research question that Casey just explained, we first explored the literature with pre-existing studies to find what information was already available on virtual reality. After understanding a little bit more about the field of virtual reality in interventions, we developed a research design that was then approved by the Institutional Review Board at Springfield College. We next created a 12-question survey using the software program Qualtrics, which was then distributed to occupational therapists and occupational therapy assistants who work with our population, which is individuals who have experienced a stroke. The survey questions focused on demographic information, the therapist's use of virtual reality, different types of virtual reality, as well as reasoning for using and not using it, and the influence that it plays on patients' ability to complete and perform IADL tasks. The questions were designed so that the responses produced a mixture of different forms. So we had responses in the form of Likert scale, open-ended questions, as well as multiple choice close-ended questions, which allowed the participants to provide individualized information about themselves as well as their own practice. The surveys that we distributed through the surveys that were distributed through virtual communication methods such as Facebook, AOTA, discussion boards and chat rooms, as well as email. And then after about 5 weeks, the survey was closed and we started analyzing the data. Our results were then compared to the literature previously mentioned regarding virtual reality interventions for individuals who have experienced a stroke in order to draw our own common themes and conclusions.
So moving on to our summary of results, we wanted to start off by pointing out that we had a total of 22 respondents who participated in our survey. Of the 22, 20 of the participants were occupational therapy practitioners, while the other 2 consisted of occupational therapy assistants. Our participants were also asked to list which settings they worked in, so we wanted to give you some insight into which settings were most prevalent, and these included inpatient rehabilitation centers, skilled nursing facilities, acute care settings, long-term acute care hospitals, outpatient orthopedic clinics, inpatient psychiatric units, as well as academia. We also got responses from all around the country, spanning from Maine all the way to California, which was awesome. So now to summarize some of the key findings that we found through our research, the first is the types of virtual reality used. Some of these included Xbox Kinect, BERT, Tyromotion, driving simulators, and Oculus were the most commonly used. And all of these devices were found to have a strong impact on an IADL function for their individuals. Secondly, we also looked at the likelihood of participants who will continue using and who are open to using virtual reality within therapy, as we had majority of participants would be willing to utilize virtual reality, with half of the participants already implementing this type of therapy within their practice. Third, we also found a parallel between the years of experience in the field from our respondents in conjunction with the usage of virtual reality. So over half of our respondents with an average of 6 to 10 years of clinical experience have implemented virtual reality into interventions with this population, indicating that practitioners have begun using virtual reality earlier in their careers. And lastly, we also dove into the perceived benefits of virtual reality on IADL function. So occupational therapy practitioners view virtual reality intervention as having an extreme positive impact on both ADLs and IADLs within this target population. Some of these areas include home establishment and management, meal preparation and cleanup, health management and maintenance, shopping, driving and community mobility, and they also had the choice to enter in another option, which was not directly associated with IADL function, but rather the concepts that contribute to their abilities to perform IADLs, and this included general balance, neuro reeducation, functional balance for IADLs and ADLs, leisure occupations, safety during ADLs and IADLs, social engagement and supports, and vision and neglect with coordination focus.
There are multiple implications for occupational therapy practice resulting from our findings. First, therapists that participated in our survey reported that incorporating virtual reality may increase IADL performance in areas such as health management, home establishment, meal preparation, shopping, both grocery shopping and leisure shopping, as well as driving and community mobility. In addition, virtual reality may assist with other areas of occupation that fall outside of IADLs on the occupational therapy practice framework. For example, therapists reported that they perceive virtual reality as being beneficial in supporting functional balance and coordination, neurological re-education, leisure, social engagement, and improvement of visual neglect. By implementing virtual reality in stroke therapy, occupational therapists may be able to contribute to a higher level of independence in daily activities using this non-traditional therapeutic intervention. By simulating real events using these systems, occupational therapists may increase patient confidence and improve quality of life following a stroke. Additional research is required to determine the specific relationship between these systems and IADL functions, with formal assessments and evaluations of individuals with stroke before, during, and after virtual reality intervention sessions. Overall, results from our study indicate a promising outlook for virtual reality systems in a variety of therapeutic settings. As future therapists, we can utilize this intervention strategy to promote client-centered care using a holistic approach. So before we finish our presentation, we would like to say a few thank yous. First, to Dr. Scott McNeil for his unwavering support and assistance throughout the research process. We couldn't have done this without you. Additionally, we would also like to thank Dr. Kathy Post for giving us our initial inspiration, as well as providing us with opportunities to expand our knowledge in the role of occupational therapy in this population. At this time, we would love to answer any questions that anyone in the audience may have.
Hi there, Rosa. I do see one question in the chat. This is Scott, everybody, by the way. How's it going? First of all, nice job, everyone. So what effect did COVID have on your research project and findings?
Yeah, so to answer that, when we first started this research project back last spring with Kathy, we had talked about actually physically going and doing some virtual reality intervention with this population. But obviously with social distancing and facilities closing, we had to resort to this survey method. So it was interesting to see how our survey changed, as well as learn more about the perceived benefits. So in the future, we would definitely like to learn more by actually performing these interventions.
Great. Any other question for this group? We probably have time for one or maybe two more questions. Feel free to put it in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and toss your question out there. What use, thank you, Dr. Post. What use of VR did you find most interesting?
I really found it interesting the way that therapists were able to incorporate leisure activities with virtual reality. For example, using the virtual reality of Wii or Xbox Connect, like Wii Sports has tennis, they have a bunch of them. So being able to incorporate that into treatment and just really using that to create a holistic treatment plan, being able to incorporate things that are engaging and also meaningful to the clients really makes their experience a lot better with therapy. So that's our goal, is just to have them have a good time, but also increasing function along the way.
And I think one thing that I found most interesting in terms of the types of virtual reality is, so I know that we had already known going into the study about more of like the video game virtual reality types, like the Wii and the Kinect, but I was interested, as Kendra said, to learn more about other ones, like she mentioned the BERT, the Tyro Motion, and the driving simulation. So I thought those were really interesting to have contributed in our responses as well.
Great, and I wonder if we have time just to squeeze in Andrea's question real quick. Was there one type of virtual reality system that was more widely used?
Yes, so according to our respondents' answers to our survey questions, the most prominent use of virtual reality was from the Nintendo Wii, which was really interesting because that did line up a lot with the literature that we reviewed going into building this research project. The second most common was actually the Xbox Kinect.
Not a question. I don't know if you read that, folks. Not a question, but I thought this presentation was really interesting to listen to. Awesome job, Group 1. Absolutely. Congrats, folks. Nice work. Way to start things off strong. If somebody does have another question as the next groups transition, I imagine feel free to put it in the chat and the group can perhaps respond to that as well. But again, congrats, everybody. Nice job.
Okay, that was wonderful. Way to go, Group 1. So let's roll on to Group 2. Take on over.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Ehrlich.
I'm Mary Coloni.
And I'm Jamie Lynn Forsyth.
And our group did a qualitative research design titled Effective Adaptive Equipment on Quality of Life for Individuals with Visual Impairments. And before we proceed, We would just like to thank our research advisor, Dr. Scott McNeil, for guiding us throughout the process. So our research question for the study was, what is the effect of adaptive equipment on quality of life for individuals with visual impairments? So the objective of this study was to use semi-structured interviews to explore the impact of the use of adaptive equipment on the quality of life for individuals who experienced visual impairments due to a sudden traumatic event. And we wanted to focus on sudden traumatic events instead of more prolonged type of vision loss, because we felt that there was a distinct difference between the two types of vision loss. So more about our methods. We had two participants participate in the research study. We had participant A, who is a 48-year-old female who acquired her vision loss due to a condition called diabetic retinopathy and to a traumatic event, and participant B, who is a 42-year-old female who acquired her vision loss from a stroke. And both of these participants acquired their vision loss within the last 5 years. So through our qualitative research study design, we had semi-structured interviews where we had specific questions that we asked the participants to find out more about their conditions and to find out about the way that they implemented adaptive equipment into their daily life and how that improved their quality of life. So these interviews were given via Zoom audio, and we recorded these interviews. So we found our participants through contacting various blind associations and organizations. And during the actual interviews, we had a few demographic questions that we asked in the beginning, followed by 9 open-ended questions that gathered more data about the specific vision loss that they have, the adaptive equipment they use, and how that affected their quality of life. So these interviews lasted between 20 to 30 minutes, and all of them were recorded on the audio of Zoom so that we could later analyze the data.
So for our results, we decided to provide a narrative of each participant and their personal experience with acquired vision loss. And then from those findings, we identified some common themes. So as briefly spoken by Michelle, participant A was in a traumatic accident that left her only being able to see shapes of objects and only seeing in black and gray, as well as her previous diagnosis of diabetic retinopathy. So participant A had a strong support system, which allowed for further growth. She did reveal to us that while she did not have much family or friends around to help her, she did have a lot of support from her local blind association. Support groups and resources provided to her from the association played a huge role in her recovery and adaptation to the new diagnosis. Participant A also explained to us how she was able to adapt her home environment to better fit her needs and continue to participate in ADLs and meaningful activities. She shared her love for mountain biking prior to her accident, and since that is now a safety concern and something she is unable to achieve, she has placed a stationary bike in her home to accommodate that meaningful activity that she once enjoyed. Participant A also relies greatly on her standard white cane for increased independence. This was the first piece of equipment given to her after her accident, and she says it is still used in her life every single day. Additionally, she really relied on technology on her phone and iPad tablet. She explained an application called My Eyes. It provides a 24/7 service for anything that she needs. She uses the app and it directs her to a person on the other end, and they're able to read food cans, directions. She uses it mostly for dressing. She'll lay out some clothes on her bed, and the provider on the other end will be able to tell her which colors and styles match appropriately. Overall, participant A really emphasized on having as much freedom and independence as possible in her everyday life. When she spoke about these resources and adaptive technologies, she stated, "Without them, I don't think I would be able to live alone." So it is important to note that she does live on her own and is completely independent in her daily tasks. Participant B, she experienced a stroke, which caused right-sided visual field cut. For my OTs, we know that as hemianopsia. So she, on the other hand, had a lot of family support. However, she expressed how she was feeling very frustrated and discouraged when she needed to start relying on them. She said it was really hard for her to realize and adjust to the idea that she could no longer just go and do what she wanted. She did seek out speech and OT services. Her diagnosis was caused by a stroke, so incorporating other impairments with other than her vision loss. So OT was able to help her adjust to the visual impairments by teaching her visual scanning skills and educating her on her visual field cut, as well as fine motor training. And the main piece of adaptive equipment that she used were her prism glasses. However, she did express not wanting to wear them at first due to embarrassment. She did only wear them around people that knew about her diagnosis. She has since adjusted to them, and they help increase her vision about 80% and have played a huge role in her independence. She is also currently on the waiting list for new virtual glasses. So group 1, some more virtual stuff. And she expressed that she's really excited about that. And one of the more frustrating tasks for participant B was reading, especially since she wanted to read to her young children. But since she used reading as a way to provide improve other impairments that came with her stroke. So she almost used that impairment as her strength to improve scanning, comprehension, and speech. So some of the common themes that we found were that both participants understand the importance of safety as it applies to the daily life with the visual impairment. For example, one participant explained using safe food choppers instead of knives. They also addressed the use of adaptive equipment and technology and its positive effect on daily life, and how because of these new devices and technologies, they are able to participate in desired tasks. Both participants discussed negative implications on mental health immediately after the incident. Both participants spoke on self-doubt, embarrassment, frustration, discouragement, and helplessness. And however, there were clear improvements in mental health and quality of life after the introduction to adaptive equipment. At one point in our interview with participant B, she stated, "I feel lucky. I lost my vision, but I could have lost a lot more." Additionally, participant A concluded her interview by stating, "Now I feel like I can do anything."
Second, hold on, I'm having computer technical difficulties.
Okay, so there are a lot of clinical implications that go along with our study, but I'm just going to sort of go over a few that we thought were the most important. So as OTs, it's really important that we advocate for our patients and have resources readily available for them. So this can be anything from websites that might be helpful, peer groups that we've heard of, organizations in the area that we know work really well with people who have visual impairments. So sort of just providing them with all of the resources that we know of so that they can reach out to them and get additional help other than OT. It's also really important that we provide an honest and open outlet for communication. Like Mary spoke to, a lot of people who have visual impairments in such a sudden and traumatic way often have a lot of difficulty with their mental health, or they don't feel that they have very strong support systems or people around to help or people that understand what they're going through. So it's extremely important as educators and therapists that we're there not only to help them with their physical impairments, but with their mental health as well, and are someone that they can go and talk to. Mental health also has a huge impact on their performance and motivation and desire to improve. So taking time to really see the whole person is extremely important in the development of not only their vision, but gaining confidence and confidence as well. It's very important that we acknowledge their feelings and fears and doubts, so that is something that they can overcome instead of having always as a barrier in front of them. And lastly, also, it's very important that we educate clients on the use of their adaptive equipment. We want them to feel independent and have stronger feelings of confidence and efficacy in using them. As our participants sort of told us, it's these pieces of adaptive equipment help them to be independent in all the purposeful and meaningful tasks that they have in their everyday life. And without them, they feel like they couldn't be independent. So overall, our entire study sort of just shows that the introduction of adaptive equipment and OT in general really does help improve people's quality of life. And that's it.
Nice. Thank you so much, everybody. I did see a couple of questions that are in the chat here, so we do have time to tackle a couple of these. Sam asks, what was the most challenging aspect of this study and how did COVID affect you?
COVID affected us a lot, I would say. So we only had 2 participants. So our original plan prior to COVID was to physically go into some local blind associations and really explain what we wanted to do and get to meet some people in person. It's much harder to contact people when it's over the phone or over email because it's a lot easier for them to just not answer. Um, so I would say that, uh, you know, if COVID wasn't a barrier, I feel like we could have had probably a handful of more participants. So I think that was our biggest barrier for sure.
Got you. Thanks, Marion. Did your participants say that there was one type of adaptive equipment that was the most beneficial for them?
Yeah, so for participant A, we sort of talked a little bit about that My Eyes app in her phone. She finds that to be extremely helpful in just her everyday tasks and with things that she feels unsafe with. So like using her stove or cooking and things like that. And then for mobility, she found the white cane to be most helpful. And then for participant B, the most helpful device for her was her Prism glasses. So what Prism glasses do is they sort of help, it's like a mirror that helps you see the other side that her vision loss is in. So it sort of helps her left eye be able to make up for the vision loss in her right eye. So that helped her vision by about 80%, and that was the most commonly used and important device to her.
Great, thank you, Jamilyn. Any other questions for group 2?
God, I think there was a hand or two up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see the hands. I'm on a one screen
Gotcha.
mission here.
Megan, did you have a question? I saw your hand was up, I thought.
I'm scrolling down the road here, see if I see any.
Maybe not. Thought I saw a hand, but.
Gotcha. And again, if you do have another question, feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat. And I'm sure one of the group members would be happy to help you out. But everyone, join me in congratulating group 2. Nice job, everybody. Wonderful.
All right, that was very good. Amazing. All right, let's move on to group number 3. Go ahead and take over.
Okay. Be with you in just a moment. Okay, can everybody see this? So, oh, wait a second. Okay, so we are group 3. My name is Lynn Borelli.
My name is Kaylee Cesard.
And I'm Courtney.
And I'm Logan Nace.
Our advisor was Dr. Andrea Coppola, and our research topic was adaptive equipment use in arthritis.
Hey, Lynn.
What?
Not sharing your screen.
Oh. Okay, let's try this again.
Deep breaths, everyone. Deep breaths.
Now, are we good?
We're good.
Cool. Take it away, Kaylee.
So the question that guided our research was, how does adaptive equipment use among individuals with arthritis influence their everyday routines? Our goals for this presentation is for you guys to understand the types of adaptive equipment that are used and the prevalence among individuals with arthritis, and to understand the impact that adaptive equipment use has on individuals with arthritis.
So we implemented a cross-sectional mixed method study using an electronic survey via Qualtrics platform. We recruited our participants from Facebook pages, including both our personal pages and arthritis support groups. The participants had to live in the US, be 55 years or older, and have at least one arthritis diagnosis. Originally, we had 106 survey responses. However, after taking into consideration our inclusion criteria, there was a total of 77 participants. The survey these participants completed had both open and closed-ended questions, which looked at the participants' demographics, frequency of adaptive equipment use, satisfaction with adaptive equipment use, potential benefits of adaptive equipment use, and if respondents had ever received occupational therapy care in regards to their arthritis symptoms. Once those 77 participants completed the survey, we collected our data through both descriptive and thematic analyses.
Our research, after investigating the use of adaptive equipment and in individuals' lives with arthritis, highlighted multiple findings and themes. Before looking at different types of commonly used AE and their impact in daily routines for participants, we asked introductory questions to get a sense of previous knowledge on adaptive equipment and provide a definition if participants indicated no previous knowledge. When taking into consideration the questions seen here in the chart to the left, are you currently or have you ever received occupational therapy or other rehabilitation-related services in the past for your arthritis? 45 respondents selected yes, while 31 respondents selected no, making 40% of participants reporting that they have never received services in the past for their arthritis. Interestingly, a similar percentage of participants, 46%, reported that they are not familiar with the term adaptive equipment. We question if these two findings are linked and if they indicate that there may be a lack of knowledge, awareness, or lack of access to therapy-related services for individuals with arthritis.
These are some of our other findings. Based on our findings, we concluded that adaptive equipment is more commonly used when completing necessary daily activities such as dressing, bathing, and in the kitchen, as compared to adaptive equipment for leisure activities or driving. We wondered if this had to do with the availability of adaptive equipment for dressing, bathing, and kitchen-related tasks as compared to other areas, a potentially greater demand for adaptive equipment in these areas, or lack of knowledge in knowing what adaptive equipment is available for IADLs. IADLs, or instrumental activities of daily living, are activities that support day-to-day operations, such as driving, meal preparation, and taking care of children or pets, just to name a few. We noticed that more commonly known, universal, or mainstream adaptive equipment items were used more frequently, such as a handheld shower head, electric can openers, and reachers. While this chart shows the most common currently used pieces of equipment, we also looked at what pieces of adaptive equipment were used in the past. Some participants reported that they used adaptive equipment in the past, but are not currently using it. This finding was consistent with previous research that found people may no longer use adaptive equipment due to no longer needing it. We questioned if this finding is due to general noncompliance, difficulty of use, or increased time required when using adaptive equipment.
As Courtney previously stated, when analyzing our data, we performed a thematic analysis. From this analysis, we discovered 4 common themes about adaptive equipment use in individuals with arthritis, which were increased independence, increased participation, increased confidence, and decreased pain. 28 participants reported that adaptive equipment helped to increase their independence. One quote from a participant is, "My adaptive equipment allows me to be independent with many daily tasks. I take longer to accomplish the task, but overall I feel a sense of self-worth." 17 participants reported that adaptive equipment has allowed them to increase their participation in daily activities, with one participant reporting that, "I can reach objects with my grabber without asking for help. My showers are more complete by using the removable shower head. I feel cleaner, well rinsed. The long-handled sponge allows me to wash my back with ease. The back scratcher is just wonderful. No need to bother anyone else." 35 participants reported they strongly or somewhat agree that their confidence has improved since using adaptive equipment, with one participant stating, "Makes myself a little bit more confident." 28 participants say they agree or strongly agree that without my adaptive equipment, my pain levels affect my ability to participate in activities of daily living. One quote from a participant states that adaptive equipment allows me to do more for myself, do more, have less wear and tear on my body, have less pain.
So after completing both our literature review and this research study, we came up with 3 main clinical implications. First, occupational therapists need to involve the client in the prescription process in order to maintain a client-centered approach and to promote adaptive equipment adherence. We recommend this because both our study and the other research suggests that adaptive equipment compliance decreases potentially due to the lack of involvement clients have. Occupational therapists also need to ensure they provide proper education to clients about the adaptive equipment and demonstrate how it works before expecting them or the clients to use it on their own.
Lastly, occupational therapists should inform their clients on the potential benefits of AE, which may include enhancing ADL and IDL performance, joint integrity, preservation, and reduced potential and additional complications. Finally, thank you all for listening to our research presentation on adaptive equipment use in arthritis. And thank you, Dr. Andrea Coppola, for your help and guidance through this research project. At this time, we would like to answer any questions from the audience.
Any questions from anybody? I see that, of course, Joni made a remark about how she loves that you guys identified the most helpful adaptive equipment and the least utilized. Question from Kathy Post. Were you able to compare how many of the respondents who had not received services also said they were not familiar with AT?
So that was a finding we did want to look at further. We actually did not include that in our analysis yet, but it was something that we talked about looking into further. Qualtrics, the program that we use to collect our data, doesn't show each person's responses. So we had a little bit of difficulty trying to navigate that part of it. But we were looking for alternative ways to see if we could compare who said what and be able to track it throughout, like having one person's responses and seeing what they said specifically.
Comment from Sarah Nicholas. I love that you included quotes from the participants to really emphasize how they felt about the AE. And then I, of course, always have a question. Was there any adaptive equipment that came up in your survey that you weren't specifically asking about, but that someone had noted was particularly helpful for them?
Yes, a couple of things. One of the participants said pen again helps them write. So it's a certain adaptive tool to help them write. And then lazy goose neck holder. So it basically is like this holder that you wrap around your neck and it holds your phone up like this. So when you're laying in bed, you can watch the videos and stuff without having to use your hands.
Let's see, so that's great information. Corey Trotner, did you get any respondents saying that they had tried any AE on their own and had purchased through common companies on their own, like Amazon, without OT treatment?
Yes, in a way. So we showed you the results chart that said previously used adaptive equipment and then currently used. What we didn't include was another chart that said prescribed. And so when we say the word prescribed, we meant was it prescribed by a therapist or your primary care physician, stuff like that. And we did notice that those numbers were slightly lower. So there were still other individuals who still use adaptive equipment. It just wasn't prescribed to them. So we imagine that they got it through Amazon or word of mouth and stuff.
Okay, and looks like Scott posted a link for that lazy gooseneck folder for your reference. Otherwise, thank you so much. You guys did a fantastic job. I'm very proud of the work that and the data that you collected.
Thank you.
Round of applause.
Nice job. Very good. Okay, that was group 3. And I would expect group 4 would be after that one. And they are rolling in quickly.
Okay, so hi everyone. I am Lindsay Jeffries.
I'm Jessica Beckford.
I'm Sandy Molina.
Olivia Longo. And the title of our research project is Examining the Mutual Benefits of Intergenerational Exchanges Between Older Adults and School-Aged Children.
So intergenerational programs, or IGPs, offer activities to promote positive social interactions and exchanges between 2 generations. Most types of IGPs involve a younger and an older adult population and have been shown to create mutual benefits for both parties. The purpose of our study is to explore the different objectives of those who design and implement IGPs, to analyze how IGPs can positively affect the overall well-being of older adults, and to understand how these programs can affect youth perceptions of older adults through the relationships formed during the program. From these objectives, we devised these 2 research questions. How do intergenerational programs impact the well-being of older adults? And do these types of intergenerational programs alter the youth's perceptions of the older adults through the bonds that are formed?
So we gathered data through an electronic anonymous survey through the Qualtrics platform, and then survey responses underwent thematic and descriptive statistical analyses. Inclusion criteria for participants included being a program director of an IGP, being at least 18 years old, and the program being active in the last 2 years in the state of Massachusetts. We had a total of 5 program facilitators who completed the survey. The table to the left, if you can see, depicts their program characteristics, such as the average age of participants, average number of participants for both older adults and youth. And then the reported duration of the program and the setting where the programs took place varied as well. As you can see, nursing home, community center, schools, and church. And then to the table to the right depicts the type of interventions they reported in their program, and music being the most common at 21%.
So from our methodology and data analysis, we were able to draw our results, which included 3 overarching themes associated with their subcategories. So for our first theme, we found that intergenerational programs allowed youth to develop positive attitudes towards an understanding of older adults. More specifically, as participants spent increased amounts of time together, the youth were able to acknowledge older adults, as well as gaining respect for older adults within their respective programs and in general. For our second theme, we found that intergenerational programs allowed older adults to develop a sense of purpose and improve their overall well-being. Within this theme, it was found that older adult participants were observed to have an increased sense of purpose, as well as multiple benefits in regards to their physical and mental health and overall well-being. And a quote from a participant to support this states, "For our seniors, they have a purpose to show up and share how they think and feel. They see that they are needed." For our third theme, we found that all types of intervention methods used in the intergenerational programs fostered positive social exchanges between both the youth and older adult participants. Among these interventions, which were shown in the previous graph that Sandy showed, were role-playing, music, reading, arts and crafts, physical activity, socializing in a conversational manner, and others such as discussion and debate. And in utilizing these interventions, it was found that intergenerational programs increase cooperation, interactions, and exchanges between people of different generations, which ultimately allowed them to mutually share their talents and resources and support each other in ongoing relationships that benefit both the individuals and their community. And in addition to these three themes emerging, there are also some barriers that program facilitators mentioned in regards to their overall participation in intergenerational programs. More specifically, 4 out of the 5 participants reported that they faced barriers in facilitating their intergenerational program, and 2 of those program facilitators listed COVID-19 restrictions and technology as current barriers that they faced. So in other words, COVID-19 restrictions made it difficult to run a program since those face-to-face interactions were eliminated, leaving technology and Zoom as the main way of interacting with one another in this current climate. One program director stated, "More seniors would participate if we were not on Zoom." This is a restriction because many older adults are not familiar with it or do not have access to it, either due to a limited budget or lack of availability within their specific location. Some other difficulties that they face included language barriers, scheduling conflicts, transportation, and time. So overall, it was found that there were mutual benefits for both the youth participants and the older adults, and several facilitators also suggested some areas of improvement for intergenerational programs.
Yes, so like Liv said, we also asked the program facilitators to report on any areas of improvement that they felt they could make in their IGPs. So some of these areas of improvement that were similar amongst the directors, so 3 out of 5 of the programs indicated that they could use more time for their program to run, improved recruitment strategies, better communication with the IGP partners and sites, and improved methods to sustaining long-standing partnerships with those who participated in their IGPs. And as for our clinical implications and our overall takeaway from our research and how we will use this information in OT practice, we found that well-being can be improved for not only older adults, but for youth as well, and positive perceptions can form not only for youth towards older adults, but also for adults towards youth. Therefore, OTs can plan and implement IGPs as part of their interventions in order to provide these mutual benefits of improved well-being and positive perceptions to both populations. Our findings also line up with past literature that explain how adults with dementia and youth with ADHD have benefited from participating in IGPs. So OTs can consider recruiting and facilitating IGPs to target these populations in addition to other populations, such as youth with autism and developmental delays, as well as adults with depression. And finally, we just have this quote from one of our participants who participated in our study, whose IGP was a chorus with youth participants and older adult participants. And we find that this perfectly sums up our overall takeaway from our research. And it says, participating in this chorus that empowers people, builds self-confidence, builds joy, creates community. All these things affect both the older adults and youth in enhancing general health and well-being. So we would just like to thank Andrea Coppola for advising us and sharing resources and insight about IGPs to guide us through this research project. Thank you. We'll take any questions or.
All right. So some questions that are coming through. Corey made a remark about the connection between youth with ADHD and autism, finding the programs to be beneficial. Megan has a question. Why did you decide to do this as a topic? It is super interesting.
I could take that one. It's been nice working with these ladies because we have different interest areas. For instance, I'm interested in going into peds, whereas other of my group members, they want to work with older adults. So we kind of got to come together and talk about the best of both worlds in this. And I have some previous experience with intergenerational programs. I just think it's it just gives a lot to both sides of the participants. And I was glad that our research was able to reflect what I did notice when I participated in it. So it's really that OT passion. It's why we picked it.
Joni is asking if you can remind us of the ages of the participants of the youths and or older adults. And then she said, okay, at least the youth.
Yeah, so we have in our chart for program characteristics, since we had our 5 participants, it kind of was, the results were various throughout for all of it. So one participant stated 90 and up, 70 to 79, 60 to 69, 50 to 59. And then for the youth population, they had adolescents, 16 to 20. Another group also had ages from 0 to 4, 5 to 10, 11 to 15, and kind of everything in between. So from our 5 participants, the results were extremely various, especially with ages.
Question from me. Do you think that post-pandemic there will be a greater need for intergenerational programs, and why, if so?
Absolutely. Lindsay, do you want to take this one? Because I know one of our participants touched on it.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, like Jessie said, just because of all the isolation that has occurred, and especially for older adults, maybe grandparents who haven't been able to see their grandkids, and having a lot of that social isolation, having a program like this will just really allow them to be around other people and experience those benefits that we discussed.
Lori commented that she loves that there are so many different settings in which these types of programs are taking place. Any other questions or comments? All right, well, thank you so much. You guys did a fantastic job. Great information.
Okay, that was very interesting. I was surprised to see the variety of youth involved. I pretty much always thought it was just the youngsters. So that's pretty neat. Group 5, you ready to roll?
I think so.
All right.
Sorry. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending our research presentation today. My name is Danielle Hoffner.
I'm Destiny Bureau.
I'm Katie Rowe.
And I'm Allison Tbilski.
The title of our presentation is COVID-19 related changes in the lives of individuals with Parkinson's disease. Prior to starting, I would like to take a moment to thank our research advisor, Dr. Joan Simmons, for her help during this process. As well, thank you to Dr. Chris Hakala for guiding us through the statistics and SPSS during this project. I would also like to thank Chad Moore and the staff and participants of DopaFit Gym for helping us make this research project possible. DopaFit is a gym for individuals with Parkinson's disease that offers targeted exercise classes, support groups, and much more. They are in Southampton, Massachusetts, and they make an incredible impact on the lives of their members. Traditionally, research regarding Parkinson's disease and symptom management focused on implementation of exercise and its benefits for the participants impacted by this condition. However, when COVID-19 pandemic began, it limited the ability of individuals to participate in in-person exercise classes. This created a unique opportunity for my group to look at what happens when in-person exercise classes are restricted for a population that relies on it. This led to the development of our research question. How has the limited ability to attend exercise classes as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic impacted the lives of individuals with a clinical diagnosis of Parkinson's disease? We predicted that participants would report a decrease in quality of life, social participation, and social support during the pandemic compared to before it. It was also hypothesized that participants would report having increased difficulty with activities of daily living and an increased manifestation of Parkinson's disease symptoms. In addition, we took this opportunity to investigate what individuals needed from their healthcare professionals during this time to help minimize the pandemic impact on their well-being.
We conducted a mixed methods research project utilizing a Likert scale through a survey and open-ended questions, all on an online platform. Participants included individuals diagnosed with Parkinson's disease who are participating members of DopaFit Gym in Southampton, Massachusetts. We had a total of 24 participants, 14 males and 10 females. Their ages ranged from 46 to 92. We found that the diagnosis length reported was varied.
3 participants reported being diagnosed less than a year ago. 3 participants reported being diagnosed 1 to 3 years ago. 10 participants reported being diagnosed 4 to 5 years ago. 2 participants reported being diagnosed 6 to 7 years ago, and 6 participants reported being diagnosed 7 or more years ago. We utilized the Modified Parkinson's Disease Questionnaire that focused on areas of quality of life, functional abilities, social emotional factors, and DOPA-FIT participation levels. We had participants report what stage of Parkinson's they were in based on the Hoehn-Yard scale, which is typically used to track the level of disease progression in individuals with Parkinson's. We found that 7 participants were in stage 1, meaning that the symptoms were only affecting one side of their body. 2 participants were in stage 2, meaning that the symptoms affected both sides of their body and they had no balance impairments. And 15 participants reported that they did not know which stage they were in. Lastly, our inclusion criteria included the following for our participants to take part in this study: individuals with a clinical diagnosis of Parkinson's for 6 months or more, current or previous members of DOPA-FIT Gym for at least 3 months, adequate cognitive skills to read, comprehend, and navigate the consent form and online survey.
After analyzing the qualitative data, 4 overarching themes were found: community and camaraderie, psychosocial effects, class intensity, and current support network. A participant was quoted saying, "I am unable to do many of the things I used to do with physical activity. I went to the gym 5 days a week and to DOPA-FIT boxing 2 days a week. I used to be socially active with friends. The isolation has been very tiring, definitely been impacted by COVID-19. After further statistical analysis of the survey, significant changes were found in decreased quality of life, decreased social participation, decrease in DOPA-FIT class effectiveness, decrease in social rapport at DOPA-FIT, and an increase in difficulty in cutting food. Notable trends were found during the study consisted of increased difficulty with hygiene tasks and self-dressing, increased feelings of anxiety, loneliness, and depression, and a decreased perceived satisfaction of health. Overall, the inability to engage in exercise classes with the appropriate level of difficulty and social support from their peers may have led to an increase in the Parkinson's symptoms, both physically and psychologically. These findings may have directly resulted in a significant decrease of quality of life and a notable decrease in the satisfaction of health for individuals participating in this study. With the classes being held over Zoom, the sense of community was minimized, losing its meaningful effect. Even though there was a theme of participants reporting satisfaction with how DOPA-FIT staff have been supportive, it was not enough to replace the camaraderie of in-person classes. The missing feeling of togetherness, fostered by having an entire community serving as a support network, likely resulted in a significant decrease in perceived social support scores.
So significant findings regarding quality of life, social participation, and other noticeable differences indicate that exercise plays an instrumental role in maintaining symptoms of Parkinson's disease. The COVID-19 pandemic and the reduced access to exercise has negatively affected individuals with Parkinson's disease overall quality of life and social participation. It is important that occupational therapists be aware of evidence such as that found in this study in order to create effective treatment plans when working with clients with Parkinson's disease. Occupational therapists should incorporate and promote the inclusion of exercise, especially group exercise classes, into the client's daily routines to promote a physically active lifestyle and help to manage symptoms. As established in the data, exercise can be linked to reduced physical signs, resulting in better performance of daily tasks, but it can also help to reduce symptoms such as depression, stress, and anxiety. The data also suggests that physical exercise may slow disease progression and reduce complications associated with Parkinson's. In addition, the findings also suggest the importance of social support and the positive effects on the quality of life and psychosocial well-being in those with Parkinson's disease. So, as healthcare workers, it is essential to help individuals find and establish support networks to assist in their Parkinson's disease journey and help to promote social participation. Ultimately, we can encourage and promote programs and daily routines that incorporate both physical exercise and social interaction to help decrease physical and psychosocial symptoms of Parkinson's, as well as lead to improved overall quality of life. So now we can open up to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Okay, so we have from, I can't see who it's from, Kathy Post, I think, yes, Kathy Post. Were you able to collect data pre and post, or were participants reporting what they remembered from before COVID and how they were feeling during COVID?
Yeah, so when we sent out our survey, it was in the middle of the pandemic. And so it was what they were reported remembering, which would be where we got all of our data for the example of the pre-COVID. And then everything else was that current COVID situation when they took the survey.
Okay, good. Michelle Ehrlich is saying this is a neat topic. I have to agree. Karen said, what surprised you the most in this process? Asks you, what surprised you the most in this process?
I have to say what probably surprised us all the most during this process is how important exercise is for the symptom management of Parkinson's disease. Seeing how we've had multiple significant findings and an increased trend, or a trend across the board for people reporting that they're worse, was shocking. And as well, while we were talking to Chad Moore, the owner of DopaFit Gym, he was telling us that it's taken a real toll on his participants, and it's been noticeable even without research.
It is pretty amazing what you found. I think is too. Corey Tratner asks, what would you suggest people could do virtually, especially as the disease progresses, to increase their socialization and feeling of community, even post-COVID? Loaded question. There you go.
Yeah, so DopaFit does a great job trying to compensate for this pandemic. So they do have some Zoom classes, and where a lot of the people that, all previously went to the gym together are participating over Zoom. However, kind of what our research did indicate, it wasn't quite the same as in-person classes, yet it still, I'm sure, would be better than not being able to participate at all. And of course, if that itself was a learning curve, having everything transition online, whether that was DopaFit Gym and the instructors themselves, as well as all of the participants that went to DopaFit Gym.
Okay, you're getting lots of other compliments too. And Jean McCaffrey asks, did the program or participants identify anything they could do to maximize participation if the restrictions were to continue? Anything they would do differently?
I think overall participants were very understanding that this is all out of our control. And to kind of go along with the last question is that they're appreciative of everything that DopaFit's doing. They're in constant contact. And when we originally first met with the owner, he was telling us that he did his own study to see how they were feeling about the situation. So I think it's just important, especially as healthcare professionals, that we maintain constant contact so we could be adapting to the situation and the needs of our clients as unexpected things occur and continue to occur.
Okay. Did participants report missing certain types of exercise, like maybe aerobic or resistance training, more or less than other types?
Actually, our data the qualitative questions were open-ended, and every single answer had to do with social support. So if anything that was most missed with everything transitioning over Zoom was just the in-person interactions. So no one necessarily wrote which exercise they took. DopaFit also offers many classes. Mainly, it's really known for its kickboxing, but it also has yoga. It has some art therapy classes as well. But ultimately, I think really what they missed the most was just being among each other and that community.
To add to that, there was also reports of them missing the equipment at the gym because you don't have the same access to the equipment at home. So being able to physically use the resistance bands, weights, and other equipment they offer.
Okay, and then Karen Brager said, was complimenting you. And there's Corey Tratner, good job, good suggestions. You were right. That continued contact virtually and in person combined is really important to keep people involved and help improve quality of life. Great research, good job. So I have a question though. I'm wondering, this is I'm wondering, and I don't know if you found this out, but how does CHAD attract people to DopaFit? Do you know? How do people get to know about a place like this?
I'm hoping it's from the great occupational therapists and other healthcare professionals out there who are aware of DopaFit and the benefits it offers that are sending their clients that way. But we don't actually know the answer to that.
So an implication might be that all of we OTs should look around for such resources to recommend. Okay, because that is a nice one. DopaFit is great. And I think it's amazing too that you all found so much data relevant to OTs, the trends and the significant findings that are related to quality of life, feelings of health, and ADLs. I just think was really interesting, really neat. Good job.
Thank you.
Corey
Round
has
of
done a
applause.
nice job. Corey has done a nice job promoting DopaFit too.
Yes,
I think she's the one who brought it to our attention.
We have used DopaFit many times, I think, for research and management groups. And thank you to Chad for being so receptive.
That is quite true, and Chad has loved the work that our students have done over the years and said, keep sending them.
Oh. All right, round of applause. And let's move on to group number 6. Oh, they're fast.
Let me screen share.
Okay, can you see it? Looks good.
Great.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My group and I are proud to present our study of the effects of COVID-19 on activity programming for persons with dementia, with special thanks to our faculty advisor, Dr. Joan Simmons. We'll take a second to introduce ourselves so that we pop up for everyone. My name is Haley Prindle Nelson.
My name is AJ Beck.
My name is Gigi Catuño.
And my name is Bryn Harinda.
All right. So moving forward, our purpose of a study was to identify the number and type of activities implemented with persons with dementia living in assisted living facilities and skilled nursing facilities prior to and during the COVID-19 pandemic, while also considering any reported behavioral changes within the residents. So our group proposed 2 hypotheses, the first being that assisted living facilities and skilled nursing facilities would have significantly fewer activities implemented for persons with dementia during the COVID-19 pandemic as compared to prior to the pandemic. Our second hypothesis was that assisted living facilities and skilled nursing facilities would have significantly more individual-based activities as compared to group activities during COVID-19. And again, as I mentioned, we were also exploring behavioral changes of the residents residing in our participating facilities.
So our group study implemented a mixed method online research design where both qualitative and quantitative data was collected, analyzed, interpreted using a researcher-created online survey. The survey incorporated one open-ended structured question, which allowed participants to indicate observed behavioral changes in residents living in assisted living facilities and skilled nursing facilities throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. The survey also consisted of a quantitative methods, including 2 sets of checklist questions to identify activities implemented in participating facilities. The activities included from the survey were modified from Alzheimer's Association recommendation list of activities for persons with dementia and from lists generated from the literature regarding activities utilized for persons with dementia.
For the participants of this study, each researcher conducted an online search to identify facilities that met the inclusion criteria of facilities of assisted living facilities or skilled nursing facilities that have a memory impairment unit or provide memory care within several northeastern states, including New England states, Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. We initially contacted 182 facilities through their public website. Out of that, we were able to collect the email addresses of 43 program activity directors who then were emailed the informed consent and linked to the survey. 25 out of the 43 program activity directors demonstrated willingness to participate and complete the survey based off their observations and experiences working with persons with dementia in their facilities. So now we'll explain the results of our study. With 25 out of 43 participants completing the survey, we had a response rate of 58%. And for our collective quantitative data, we did 2 paired t-tests, and our results were consistent with our first hypothesis in that assisted living facilities and skilled nursing facilities implemented significantly more activities for persons with dementia pre-COVID, implementing a mean roughly of 22 compared to during COVID, implementing a mean of activities of roughly 14.
The results also supported our other hypothesis that there were significantly more activities in both facilities done in an individual format during COVID, roughly implementing an average of 14 activities, compared to activities done in a group format, in which an average of roughly 8 activities were implemented.
So in addition to these t-tests, we also analyzed the frequency of each activity implemented pre and during COVID and found that activities that were more social in nature or required non-essential visitors demonstrated a decrease in implementation in group format during COVID-19. So such as excursions, holidays, parties, beauty activities, or animal-assisted activities. Our review of literature analyzed the efficacy of various group interventions in reducing behavioral symptoms related to dementia for residents residing in long-term care facilities, such as animal-assisted interventions or group exercise. So that decrease in group format activities during COVID-19 can likely be attributed to the presence of behavioral changes that we found in our qualitative analysis.
So from our 25 responses, we completed a thematic analysis to come up with 8 themes across the participant responses. Our themes from most common to least common are loneliness and isolation, cognitive decline, depression, decreased engagement, change in affect, confusion, change in routine, and decrease in mobility and physical strength. So some direct quotes from our participants include, for loneliness and isolation, residents reported that they felt more alone and trapped, and they felt like they had lost so many friends. For cognitive decline, social distance has taken a toll on mental status of residents, and there has been an observed decrease in language skills. For depression, it was observed that residents were more sad, and depression was everywhere within the facilities. For decreased engagement, residents were reported to being used to staying in their room and didn't want to come out, and they had low motivation for leaving their room. For change in affect, residents were reported to have a short temper, easily irritated, anxious, stern, and wildly overwhelmed. For confusion, overall, it was reported that residents were more confused and they did not understand why they couldn't be with their friends. For change in routine, residents were getting constant redirection by staff members for social distancing and keeping their masks on, and residents were staying in bed longer than they previously had been. And lastly, for decrease in mobility and physical strength, residents were seen to have a noticeable difference in physical abilities due to lack of group exercise and walking clubs, and there was a lack of movement, which was leading to falls.
The results of our study can be implicated in the field of occupational therapy when working with residents with memory impairments in long-term care facilities who may be quarantined due to illnesses like COVID-19. Our main takeaway from the study is that there was a suggested increase in behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia related to this loss of activity involvement, especially with activities implemented in a group format. Therefore, it is important for those working with residents with memory impairments to promote ways to support group activities and to be educated on strategies to prevent an increase in symptoms through activity involvement. Lastly, it is also important to make activity-focused recommendations to help foster the emotional and behavioral well-being of these residents during times of isolation or quarantine. Thank you for everyone for listening to our presentation, and we are open to taking any questions.
Okay, let me take a look at what we have here. From Scott, Did you have a chance to collect any data regarding creative ways that facilities are adapting activities programming? Do you feel that facilities may have tried to prioritize activities for clients with dementia?
So we got to see that activity directors were starting to implement activities virtually. So they've been trying to use like the iPad more for like home visit or family visits. They've been trying to FaceTime or use Zoom and trying to incorporate more technology as much as they can and trying to do it more on a one-on-one setting rather than in the group.
And it's interesting in regards to the facilities trying to prioritize activities for those clients with dementia. I believe we're pretty much unable to determine that for sure, but it's interesting, especially when looking at the frequency of activities, that the most frequently implemented activity during COVID-19 was cognitive activities. So that could range anywhere we defined as writing, puzzles, crosswords, so on. However, cognitive decline was the second most prominent behavioral change in residents. So we can gather that either maybe it's because cognitive activities can be done individually. However, we could also say that maybe that's because they prioritize the cognitive well-being of those residents.
Okay. From Corey Tretner, did you have any data if the people providing the activities were trained recreational therapists or others not particularly trained providing in activities to persons with dementia? Were the OTRs or CODAs, if you know, involved in any of the activity programming? Or, yeah, I think that's what.
Yeah, I can answer that one. Thanks, Corey, for your question. So we didn't have like specific data on the education experience or the trained certifications of our activity program directors, but because our inclusion criteria are just include activity programmers of assisted living facilities and skilled nursing facilities with memory impairment units. So based on that, we don't know really like the detail if they were trained or if they're CODAs, but they did have like experience hands-on and with the program.
Okay, and Kathy Post asks, do you think it's possible that the mortality of the persons with dementia may have been affected by COVID, even beyond those who actually contracted the virus?
I think that's a great question, Kathy. Thank you. I think that, yes, that is probably likely. In our review of literature, a lot of studies found that lack of activity involvement with persons with dementia can lead to inadequate stimulation, disability, boredom, just an overall greater loss of skills and functional capacities than typically caused by the disease itself. So I think it's more than likely that a lack of activity involvement and beyond COVID-19 had a great effect on persons with dementia, including mortality rate. I think that's a great question.
Going off of that also, it was also reported by one of the participants that seeing the isolation, it was having some of them feel like failure to thrive. So definitely that isolation and no socialization was definitely taking a toll on them.
Okay, so I kind of warned you I might be asking this question, so I'm going to ask it. Knowing that these residents couldn't easily participate in groups, you know, your hypotheses about the decreased activities and decreasing group activities was kind of totally expected. But why did you still decide to do the study?
Yeah, so thanks, Joni. So even though we, we hypothesized correctly in that that our participants implemented more activities during COVID versus, pre-COVID compared to during COVID, but we really wanted to see how significant those changes were with backing up with the data. And so we were interested just to see what activities are out there, how often are they implemented. And I think it really shows with our activities program directors, because we had a 58% response rate, so that need is there. They want to know what kind of activities other facilities are using. what can be beneficial for individuals during the time of like quarantine, or if someone's being isolated. So I think just really looking at the idea of, well, what kind of activities are there and how can OTs strengthen them to help reduce behavioral symptoms related to dementia.
Yeah. And I think going off of what Kathy Post wrote in the group chat, I think when you go into research, you kind of already have expectations or an idea of something, but of course you need the data to back it up. So that was kind of where we're at. It's also worth noting that we selected this topic prior to COVID-19, and initially our thoughts were to go into these facilities and measure behavioral changes or behavioral symptoms related to dementia in correspondence with different activities or maybe an intervention that we implemented, but that was not possible because of COVID. And also it's troubling measuring engagement. We were like, we can't measure engagement of residents without being there. How does one measure engagement? So we went with this topic. And I think it's interesting because especially when you look at those frequencies, activities like family visits. So that was done by all participating facilities prior to COVID-19. However, during COVID-19, only 15 facilities reported doing visitations with families. Well, that one shows that that was a priority for these facilities. More than half of them wanted to still do this. However, there were still behavioral changes or behavioral symptoms reported. So it shows that maybe the methods in which these facilities were doing it, so Zoom or through the window, wasn't as successful as it could have been. And I think that's really important.
Great. And Katie Ferranti is saying, great answer, AJ. Knowing that you selected the topic pre-COVID, how did the COVID change your study? I think you just mentioned that. Did you want to add to it though?
No.
Okay, I also want to say though that I was impressed with the 58% return rate, and then found out that all of those people asked for a report of your study, which, by the way, you don't get your grade until I hear you've sent those in to all of them.
There.
Okay, I think that's it for the questions. People saying, great job, awesome job, all that. You can read those later. In the meantime, let's give them a round of applause. And we shall next move on to group number 7. Good job, you guys.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Broner.
I'm Nicole Dennis.
And I'm Sarah Fournier.
And for our research project, we looked at the perceived effectiveness of sensory-based interventions in the school setting. So before we begin our presentation, we would like to thank our research advisor, Dr. Lori Vaughn, for all of her support and guidance throughout the last 9 months of completing this project. We couldn't have done it without you. And also, we just wanted to congratulate everyone who's already went today. Everyone has been amazing. So for those of you who may not be familiar, sensory-based interventions are often used to treat children with sensory processing difficulties, which are commonly seen in diagnoses such as autism and ADHD. Some examples of sensory-based interventions include hand fidgets, swings, weighted vests, trampolines, and swivel seats. These types of interventions work to integrate and activate children's bodily systems, whether it be their vestibular, proprioceptive, auditory, tactile, etc. And they assist children with being able to adapt more easily to the stimuli they are receiving so they can function more effectively in their daily lives and occupations. So a little brief overview of our research questions. We focused on 2 questions primarily, which were, what are occupational therapists, occupational therapy assistants, teachers, and paraprofessionals' perceptions on the effectiveness of the implementation of sensory-based interventions on children in the school setting? And our second question was, what are the perceived effects of sensory-based interventions on children's performance in the classroom?
So moving into our methods, we had a total of 43 participants in our study, all of which were school-based professionals. There were 19 occupational therapists, 18 teachers, 4 paraprofessionals, and 2 participants who selected other. Those participants who selected other reported being an administrator and a school counselor. The participants were distributed across the United States in 13 different states. However, 65% of the participants did report being from towns within Western Massachusetts. It should additionally be noted that 86%, 37 of the participants identified as being female. In terms of our procedures for the study, we as the researchers designed an online mixed method survey on Qualtrics and then disseminated the survey through email and through Facebook groups. We emailed numerous administrators within the greater Springfield area and posted the link to our survey in 3 different Facebook groups, 2 pediatric school-based groups, and a Springfield College Occupational Therapy alumni group. We utilized descriptive analysis to assess the data collected in the quantitative questions of our study. Qualtrics provided us with some graphs as well as means, ranges, and standard deviations for the majority of our questions. However, we did do some additional calculations to determine more means and standard deviations to further examine the data we collected. We also conducted a thematic analysis together on the qualitative survey questions to identify reoccurring keywords and themes within the participants' written responses.
So to address our first research question, we asked participants to rate their perceived effectiveness of sensory-based interventions on a quantitative scale of 1, which was not effective, to 5, which was extremely effective. And ultimately, we found that teachers, paraprofessionals, and OTs within the school setting perceived sensory-based interventions to be moderately effective, trending towards effective, with a mean of 3.85 and a standard deviation of 0.84. However, one prevalent theme we found was that the effectiveness varies greatly from student to student. And this is consistent with the literature that was examined, as sensory-based interventions tend to be uniquely tailored for each student's individual needs. And to address our second question, we asked participants to report what effects they perceive sensory interventions to have on children's performance in the classroom. And as can be seen in the figure to the right, these included increased attention and ability to focus, decreased hyperactivity, improved gross motor coordination, improved relationships and social participation, decreased anxiety, and improved fine motor skills and handwriting, all of which contribute to improved performance in the classroom.
So to demonstrate more specifically the effects that sensory-based interventions have, we wanted to provide you with a quote from one of the participants who shared their experience with utilizing the interventions. So they said that some students will enter OT sessions over-aroused, fidgety, and unable to sit still to attend to fine motor tasks. Sensory-based interventions specific to the behaviors they are exhibiting tend to help. For example, if I notice a student who is unable to sit still to attend to a task, we will do big gross motor movements and full body movements that allow them to be more available afterwards to work on more focused fine motor tasks. If a student is escalating or behaviorally is having an off day, we will do calming strategies, for example, sensory swings, deep pressure, or rocking on a yoga ball to regulate.
So results also revealed many other important themes and variables that related to the use of sensory-based interventions in the school setting. These included practitioner experience, the lack of standardized training, the wide variety of sensory-based interventions used, and the importance of carryover at home and in the classroom. So of the participants who took part in the study, their level of experience in their field varied greatly, ranging from less than 1 year to 37 years, with an average of 13.95 years and a standard deviation of 10.13. And this may have had an impact on the effectiveness of the implementation of the sensory-based interventions. Of the 41 participants who reported using sensory-based interventions, 38%, which was a total of 13 participants, reported that they have not received any sensory-based training. And for the 69% of respondents who answered yes to having received training, there was a total of 19 different types of training reported. So the lack of standardized training and just training in general, despite the frequent implementation of these interventions, may also have an impact on the effectiveness of them. And so Without the proper training, it may be difficult for the practitioners to understand which interventions to utilize and how to safely implement them based on the needs of each child. Participants also reported that utilizing a wide variety of sensory-based interventions, these included nearly every sensory system, including proprioceptive, which involves body position and space, kinesthetic, which involves movement, tactile or touch, vestibular, which involves balance, interoceptive, which involves internal functions, and as well as auditory and visual. And the most prevalent type of intervention was multisensory, meaning that it addressed more than one sensory system. This demonstrates the diverse needs of the students and how sensory-based interventions utilized vary between practitioners. This variation of interventions may also relate to the diversity of participant training. And the final theme that came up was the importance of carryover of sensory-based interventions from therapy to the classroom and also from school to home. So participants reported that sensory-based interventions were more effective when they were performed consistently in a child's routine, both in school and at home. However, it was also reported that carryover is often hard to implement because many teachers and parents often don't follow through with them.
Although our study was limited in scope of participants as we only had a total of 43 respondents and we did not utilize standardized methods in our study, the results and findings of the study do provide useful insight in regards to the use of sensory-based interventions within the school setting. The results suggest that sensory-based interventions were perceived by the participants as being moderately effective, trending towards effective, positively impacting quite a few areas of classroom performance. However, it was noted by participants that the effectiveness and the benefit of sensory-based interventions vary from student to student as each student is unique and has individualized needs.
So as for the clinical implications that we found, we ultimately determined that there is definitely a need for standardized training on the implementation of sensory-based interventions in the school setting. There is also a need for increased teacher and parent education to help promote that carryover of interventions between the school and the home, and also therapy in the classroom. And lastly, due to the limitations of this research study, further research is needed overall to better understand the effectiveness of sensory-based interventions, both in the school setting and beyond. So thank you so much for listening, and we would love to answer any questions you may have at this time.
All right, well done. There's some good questions here in the chat. The first one from Elizabeth, were you able to compare, I'm gonna scroll down here. Were you able to compare perceptions about the effectiveness among the OTs versus other respondents?
I'll take this one. So I think we originally were planning to do this, but the way the responses came through on Qualtrics, it just was like a list of all the answers. So we weren't sure which participants submitted which answers. So we weren't really able to compare that, but it would definitely be something that would be interesting to see with further research.
Jesse asks, were there any interesting responses when it came to carryover at home?
So when we were looking at our responses, we saw a lot more to do with carryover with teachers. So occupational therapists recommending that carryover with teachers would be a lot more beneficial. So a lot of times they will work on sensory interventions with their students. And then in the classroom, teachers may implement some of those interventions. But they were saying that there's a need for more standardized intervention training so that they can properly provide them, so that they do provide benefits. So we didn't get a lot about carryover at home, but we know that carryover at home is important as well and could only help to benefit students. So we would be interested in looking into that as well.
Lynn asked if there was one type of intervention that was discovered to be more effective than others.
Yeah, so multisensory turned out to be the most popularly utilized type of intervention. As for effectiveness individually, that's something we definitely talked about, that it's something we want to look into further, because we kind of just looked at sensory-based interventions as a whole and had our respondents provide us with examples of what they utilize. But that's something we can definitely explore further in the future.
Andrea wanted to know if you asked, did you inquire or did the participants mention how much sensory-based interventions the students received on average, such as multiple times a day versus a few sessions or opportunities in a week? Oh my goodness, we're getting so many questions. This is great.
So one of our survey questions was that exact question that Andrea asks, so how often do they implement? The majority of our participants did tell us that they implemented them daily. And in both the literature and from some of the open-ended responses we received, we discovered that implementing them daily and also throughout the day periodically is the most effective way.
Corey wants to know if you have any recommendations to families and teachers that would make it more likely for them to fit these strategies into their daily routines and thereby increasing the carryover.
Yeah, so we definitely understand that it can be really difficult to fit some of these interventions into the day, especially when you're working with a very busy school day. Teachers might have difficulty doing that. It would be really important for the teachers and the occupational therapists to determine at what time during the day kids seem to have the most difficulty, and when those sensory breaks might be really beneficial for them, so they could then plan them into the child's schedule. This could also be done at home. And maybe even handouts could be provided to the teacher and to the parents at home with just activities and suggestions for things that they can do in order to help them regulate what they're feeling sensory-wise.
Jean said, nice job providing both professional terminology and information and explanation of terms that made it accessible for all. Great job. Let's see. Corey didn't see Jesse's question, or somebody didn't. Did you receive any information on how participants continued sensory-based interventions virtually?
That's a really great question. I kind of wish we included that in our survey. I think we were initially really disappointed because we were looking forward to going in person to actually observe occupational therapy sessions and how sensory-based interventions work in local schools. So yeah, it's disappointing we didn't get to hear more about what things look like on an individual basis in schools in the area.
All right. We had so many great questions. I won't even ask you mine because I think in the essence of time we'll move on. But really, really great job. Important topic.
And I agree. Yes, another round of applause. Okay, so we are getting to the tail end of things. 2 more groups to go. How about group 8?
I will share my screen. All right, so hi everyone and welcome to our final research presentation. Our names are Kate Capuano,
Megan Berube,
Olivia Syracuse,
and Allison Souza.
and we chose to focus on the topic of the impact of PTSD on the quality of life in first responders, and we are super excited to share it with you. So a little bit about the why behind it all. As a group, we wanted to pick something not only meaningful to us, but meaningful to the population in general. And we really thought about what we wanted to learn, and we chose to focus our attention towards a pretty vulnerable population. There were a lot of different routes that we wanted to look at when looking into our research, and when we were going through the literature, we did find a lot about varying experiences and comorbidities among this population, but something that was sort of missing was how all these things impacted the quality of life. So that led us to our research question of how do symptoms of PTSD impact the quality of life of first responders? And the main objectives that we wanted to get after completing this research was to examine the presence of both PTSD and PTSD-like symptoms amongst first responders and how this might affect their overall quality of life, as well as gain insight into which specific symptoms might have a greater impact on their quality of life. And then from everything that we gathered from our data, we just wanted to understand how, as occupational therapists, we will be able to help with this population in the future.
So when conducting our study, a mixed methods approach was implemented, which consisted of a quantitative and qualitative survey that was electronically distributed to participants via Google Surveys. Following the electronic survey, participants self-selected whether or not they wanted to participate in an interview by providing their contact information on the survey response. The semi-structured qualitative interviews were conducted by 2 researchers via phone or video call to gather more information on the first responder personnel's experience with PTSD. The participants included a convenient sample of 9 first responder personnel, including firefighters, police officers, and emergency medical technicians or ambulance personnel who have served for more than 1 year. 9 participants completed the electronic survey, and 7 of those participants also participated in the interview portion following the completion of the survey. Participants were recruited via a Google search of departments, as well as through postings in Facebook groups pertaining to organizations associated with first responder personnel. In terms of demographic data, all 9 participants were male. 1 participant was 20 to 29 years of age. 2 participants were 30 to 39 years of age. 3 participants were 40 to 49 years of age. 1 participant was 50 to 59 years of age, and 2 participants were 60 to 69 years of age. 2 participants reported being firefighters. 2 participants reported being emergency medical technicians. 1 participant reported being a police officer, and 4 participants reported serving in multiple first responder positions. 1 participant reported serving for 1 to 5 years, and the remaining 8 participants reported serving for more than 10 years.
So now we're going to discuss some of the findings from the study. The table below displays the symptoms of PTSD experienced by the participants and how these symptoms negatively impacted their life on a daily basis. The study utilized a 0 to 10 scale, 0 being no impact to 10 being significant negative impact on daily life. The table to the right highlights common themes seen throughout the data, and I will talk about them more specifically. So participants reported experiencing social isolation with a mean score of 6.7. Many of the interviewees who discussed this aspect noted that the acts of avoidance that they took negatively impacted not only themselves, but their social relationships and family members as well. These aspects of self-isolation displayed a notable negative impact on the participants' quality of life, as many commented that they felt they had no one or very little people to talk to. Hyperarousal was another common symptom experienced by participants. 7 of the 9 participants reported experiencing hyperarousal within the last year and within the last 10 years. The results remained the same over time, indicating the likelihood that the effects of witnessing or experiencing a traumatic event doesn't dissipate over time. Insomnia was also stayed consistent at the 1 year and the 10-year mark. A mean score of 7 was reported for the negative impact it has on quality of life of the participants, with participants reporting getting 2 to 6 hours of sleep, which is under the recommended 7 hours or more a night. Evidence indicates that poor sleep quality has been negatively correlated with daily functioning and decreased quality of life. Anxiety is another common comorbidity found within this research with a mean score of 7.5. Interestingly, it should be noted that 8 out of the 9 participants experienced anxiety within the past 10 years. However, within the past year, only 3 of the 9 participants stated experiencing anxiety. Within the current research study, only 1 participant reported addiction to alcohol or drugs in order to emotionally numb their feelings. However, some of the other interviewees alluded to having challenges with self-medicating via alcohol and or other types of substances, which is consistent with other research and is important implication of occupational therapy, as we can help individuals find healthier coping strategies. Lastly, stigma and the lack of resources was noted throughout the interviews. 5 out of the 7 interviewees reported stigma, and when answering if participants felt that new members within their workplace are trained appropriately to emotionally prepare for and cope with witnessing possible traumatic events, all 9 of the participants responded no. In addition, when asked if any programs for new employees have been put in place since the participants were on the job, only 1 participant answered yes, 7 participants answered no, and 1 participant did not specify. Overall, the results of the study revealed that regardless of position or time on the job, first responders experience symptoms of PTSD that impact their daily living. This type of impact on daily lives has been correlated in the research with a decreased quality of life.
The findings within this research study may be applied to the practice of occupational therapy when working with first responder personnel who have experienced symptoms of PTSD, as well as to first responder departments to further encourage the development of programs and support services for this vulnerable population. This study has many implications for occupational therapy practice and can be utilized within our practice, as the findings can be used to identify and implement positive coping strategies, such as learning and implementing stress management or relaxation techniques, to deal with experienced symptoms of PTSD, which is an important goal that's aim is to reduce maladaptive coping behaviors, as well as improve one's quality of life and increase social participation and occupational performance. Maladaptive coping behaviors are behaviors which prevent a person from being able to successfully adapt to new or difficult circumstances in a positive way. The maladaptive coping behaviors we would focus on reducing include, but are not limited to, substance use, emotional numbing, and social isolation. In addition, occupational therapists can assist first responder personnel in identifying available resources within the community and promoting healthy relationships with their family, friends, and peers, as well as encourage client participation and engagement within the community. For example, the therapist could encourage the first responder to search for and join a peer support group. Lastly, occupational therapy practitioners can also assist first responder personnel in attaining available resources through educating first responders on how to effectively utilize various self-advocacy techniques, such as learning how to appropriately ask for accommodations or how to respectfully stand up for your rights when you think they're being violated. These various methods may help first responder personnel retain their functional independence and allow for continued participation within the community and within activities of daily living.
So before concluding the presentation, we just want to take a minute to make a few acknowledgements. First and foremost, we want to thank the participants, even though they are not here, just for their willingness to participate, and their vulnerability in sharing with us was a huge part of our study. Also, we would like to thank the SCOT department for constantly challenging us and providing us with the opportunities to learn and grow. And lastly, but not least, our advisor, Dr. Lori Vaughn, for her support, guidance, and knowledge over the past year. I really don't think we could have done it without her. So thank you all so much for listening at this time. We'll take any questions that you have.
Great, excellent job. We do have a couple of questions here in the chat. Kathy would like to know if this issue has been studied very much in the literature. And let's scroll down. I'm not scrolling. Okay. And I don't think you asked this, or it doesn't sound like you asked this, but do you think that PTSD increased or decreased as a result of COVID-19?
Oh, to Kathy's question, when we were doing our research, I think the majority of the articles that we all found when looking at them as a whole was just simply their experiences and what comorbidities came with that. So like we found like a lot of depression, anxiety, alcohol abuse, like suicidal ideation. But the reason we chose to go the route that we did is because there wasn't really a conclusion that came from all that. It was kind of just like, this is what they're dealing with as a result of the trauma. So we wanted to take it another step and see how it might affect them on a daily basis, because that was kind of what was missing from the literature.
And the COVID aspect, I think it does increase PTSD because of specific symptoms that they experience, such as self-isolation. It's just doubled with COVID and can create a barrier for them to reach out, another barrier on top of the stigma and lack of resources that they already have.
Joni wants to know if any of you are first responders and what attracted you to this interesting topic.
No.
Go ahead, Meg.
Oh, sorry. So no, none of us are first responders. However, many of us do have family or friends who are first responders, which is what attracted a lot of us personally to this topic. Just wanted to find out a bit more about it and about what those who we love may be experiencing. Allie, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to that too. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so just the four of us, we all have kind of a strong interest in mental health, which kind of attracted us to this topic. And given the stigma surrounding mental health, we really just wanted to bring awareness to the subject and the importance of mental health. And especially living in a pandemic right now where mental health has been more prevalent.
Comments, great topic. Lynn says, what an incredible topic. So sad and raw. It's too bad they don't include better training to deal with these kind of issues. Amazing job. Such an incredible topic. Challenging occupation for these folks. It's good for us to learn more about this. Here we go. Corey asks, did you find any or can make any recommendations for positive strength-based coping strategies as opposed to only focusing on, sorry, my dogs are going, only focusing on negative strategies like treatment for drug and alcohol use? Both kinds of strategies are needed, but would the positive-based strategies help to eliminate stigma?
So in our interviews, we actually asked the question that if they had any advice to give to newcomers, what would their advice be? And a lot of them had just said, like, don't feel afraid to reach out and to have set up a support system. And it was really interesting because a lot of them said like acceptance. So kind of bringing awareness to first responders what PTSD is, because a lot of them didn't even realize that they had these symptoms or what they were experiencing. So acceptance, awareness, and really creating a good social support, along with other individuals had like individualized things that worked better for them. Some people said music, some people said spending time with their family, different things like that.
I think generally too, like our job going into the field as like fresh OTs is to advocate for the mental health population, because it's hard to say what exactly like you want to implement and do, but until like everyone accepts that you need to acknowledge that this is a part of our well-being and our health in everyday life, no matter what profession you're in, things aren't going to move forward. So just like being an advocate for these people, I feel like is our biggest role in OT.
That actually beautifully answers the question that I was going to ask, which would be, what is the one takeaway that you would like this room full of future OT practitioners to take away from this message? That was perfect. But we have one last question in the chat. Was it hard to build a rapport for your interviews over the phone, or did you find that participants were willing to share information easily?
Actually, well, we actually split up our interviews. So Kate and Liv Syracuse were together and Meg and I were together. So I can speak for Meg and I, but most of the participants actually did Zoom calls. So we had like the visual of each other, and they were very vulnerable and very open with us. So we found it very easy to build rapport with them, which was very appreciative. And a lot of them were actually very interested in like bringing more awareness to the subject, given that pretty much actually all of them stated that there was a lack of resources available to this population. So we are very thankful of how open and vulnerable they were with us.
Yeah, for us, we did a lot of phone interviews, but they were still really willing to talk to us and open up. It was actually their idea of helping their other, people that are within this population. A lot of them had suggested that, typically I wouldn't do this. It's really hard for me to share, and along those lines. But since they saw the potential to help other people, they were really willing to share with us, which was awesome.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for sharing this topic with us, is in the chat from Mary. And I agree with that. This is a really important topic, and not a traditional population we often think about in OT, but an important population for us to remember how this trauma can impact their quality of life. So very important. And those are the comments that are continuing to go in the chat that you can look at later. So really, really well done.
And I second that, or third or fourth or fifth or whatever it is by now. But, you know, especially during these times, the first responders have some challenging issues to deal with. And so, yeah, good topic. So we have one last group to go to, but I do want to say, don't jump off when the questions are over, because there is still more to this evening. So let's have the last group go, and I'll come on after the questions.
All righty, I'll share my screen with everyone. Can everyone see this? Okay. Awesome.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Bree.
I'm Hannah. I'm Kyle.
I'm Kesa. And I'm Megan.
And our group studied the satisfaction of adults with autism when receiving care in office-based healthcare settings and how can it be improved. Our research advisor was Elizabeth McAnulty, and we would like to thank her for all of her help and guidance throughout our research process. Upon our review of the literature on this topic, we found that previous research has explored parent and caregiver perspectives regarding the experiences of their children with autism in healthcare settings and suggestions for improvement. Additionally, we found previous literature related to healthcare provider perspectives and experience when providing care to people with autism. As it relates to adults with autism, we found research related to the barriers that they face with access to healthcare services. However, we found a gap in the literature as it relates to their firsthand experiences and satisfaction during these healthcare encounters. So we felt that in order to improve healthcare experiences for this population, we needed to gain more insight into their levels of satisfaction with current healthcare experiences, which has shaped the foundation of our research question, which is, how satisfied are adults with autism when receiving care in office-based healthcare settings, and how can it be improved? So in order to address this question, we wanted to gain more information regarding their perceived barriers and facilitators to care, as these will both have a direct impact on their overall satisfaction, and then suggestions for improvement, which can hopefully be used in future research and eventually implemented in healthcare practice.
So this study implemented a non-randomized qualitative research design, which utilized a researcher-creator electronic survey for data collection. So the survey we created was adapted from a previous study and consisted of a demographic questionnaire as well as 10 open-ended questions, which helped to gather qualitative data regarding participants' thoughts and feelings about their satisfaction and overall experiences with healthcare providers during various healthcare encounters. So we recruited participants through the process of convenient sampling using a variety of online platforms. Initially, we reached out to over 25 national autism and disability-related organizations and further expanded our outreach to social media platforms such as Facebook, where we recruited to any social groups operated for and or by adults in the autism community. So listed here, you can see our inclusion criteria for participation. A total of 8 responses were recorded for this study, but ultimately we ended up with 5 participants, and any participant who did not complete the survey was excluded from the study. So our survey was delivered to participants via Qualtrics software, and a link to the survey would be provided to any interested participant through their email, and it would take approximately 10 to 15 minutes to complete. Our data collection contained both qualitative and quantitative data and was analyzed through thematic analysis, as well as through the use of Qualtrics report program to generate descriptive statistics using our demographic results.
So like Kyle said, 5 participants' responses were collected and analyzed. Overall, each participant described their satisfaction with healthcare visits as pleasant experiences, often alluding to having healthy relationships with their healthcare providers. Common themes were derived through analysis of the participants' responses to 10 open-ended questions. A thematic analysis was conducted in several phases using open and axial coding. Themes were determined from these questions in order to answer the overall research question. Our survey questions are listed in the chart with the corresponding theme. Our questions address the patient's ability to communicate with their healthcare provider, possible challenges that may occur, sensory sensitivities, coping strategies, environmental or psychological barriers, and suggestions for improvement for both the facility and the provider. The first theme we derived is the communication between patient and healthcare provider. All 5 participants described their ability to communicate effectively with their healthcare provider, which was answered in questions 21 and 22. The majority of participants stated that they feel comfortable communicating their needs with their healthcare providers. Participant 2 stated, I feel comfortable explaining my needs to my doctor, although I do sometimes feel like an annoyance. The second theme we derived was healthcare providers' knowledge and understanding. All participants referred to their healthcare providers' understanding regarding their diagnosis of autism and answered within questions 20, 22, and 23. 3 of the 5 participants believed that their healthcare provider understood their needs and diagnosis well. For example, participant 2 stated, they understand that I am autistic and require a level of assistance from my wife in communicating when I am nervous. They allow her into doctor's visits with me. While 2 of the 5 participants had differing beliefs, participant 3 stated, I believe that some doctors are too stereotypical in their benchmark for autistic people. They see a high-functioning person and automatically assume I can immediately grasp everything they're saying, while sometimes I need time to process. The third theme we derived was barriers to treatment. All participants referenced environmental and psychological barriers to treatment, which was answered in questions 24, 26, and 27. Participant 3 stated a barrier to treatment was having white coat syndrome. Doctor's visits make me anxious in general. Additionally, 2 participants discussed how fluorescent lights bother them. Participant 5 also discussed how seeing all the instruments that may be used, shots especially, make the individual nervous. The next theme we derived is sensory stimuli and ways to cope. With the exception of 1 participant, all others discussed how different sensory stimuli in healthcare settings affect them and how they cope with the stimuli and anxious feelings. This theme was pulled from questions 24 to 27. Participant 3 stated harsh lighting and certain smells irritate them and that they cope by deep breathing when alone in the waiting room, and that they may take time to pray or meditate. On the other hand, participant 1 stated that they do not experience any sensitivities to sensory stimuli. Overall, the majority of participants reported specific examples of sensory stimuli that affect their healthcare encounters and determine ways to cope under those circumstances. The last theme we derived was improvements to healthcare. All participants discussed improvements that can be made for both the healthcare providers and the healthcare facilities. This theme was pulled from questions 28 and 29. 3 of the 5 participants shared suggestions for improvement for both the provider and the facility. Suggestions to improve provider interactions include using low, calm voices, providing detailed explanations, and offering choices when asking a question, such as, does this feel good or bad? Does it hurt when you stand up or sit down? As for improvements to the facility, participants stated that they should create a space with softer lighting and low volume in the waiting area, and they should minimize the waiting time before appointments. 2 out of the 5 participants shared that they had not thought about suggestions for improvement. However, they did not say that there were no improvements that needed to be made.
Altogether, the results of our study have direct implications to OT practice because, as we know, the unique role of OT is centered around helping people meet their goals to fulfill their desired occupations. And so the findings from our study really emphasize the importance of providing an inclusive environment as a means of delivering client-centered care. OTs are specifically skilled in examining the relationship between a person and their environment and can really understand the impact that these may have on the overall healthcare experience for people with autism. That said, OTs can collaborate with facilities to develop and test the effectiveness of environmental modifications in order to improve healthcare encounters for adults with autism. Lastly, OTs should be involved in creating autism-specific training for healthcare providers in order to increase their knowledge about autism and the associated challenges that may present during their healthcare visits. Overall, OTs should continue to advocate for and support individuals with autism before, during, and after their healthcare encounters, as this could help increase their overall experience and satisfaction.
So in conclusion, our research question explored both the satisfaction rate of adults with autism with their healthcare experiences, in addition to their overall satisfaction. Following completion of this research study, we were pleasantly surprised that all 5 participants reported being satisfied with their overall healthcare experiences. Although all 5 participants reported being satisfied, they did provide some suggestions for improvement as well. For example, participant 2 suggested softer lighting or a low volume in the waiting area could be implemented. Participant 4 suggested that choices and not keeping them waiting as long could be implemented. Participant 5 suggested that the provider could use a low, calm voice, and the facility should avoid having instruments laid out where they can see them. Participant 1 and 3 reported not having thought about it. In regard to our research study and some suggestions for future practice, we concluded that it is essential that adults with autism have the opportunity to speak for themselves, hence why we created the survey to be a self-report method. In regard to the summary of results, it aligns with previous research in the fact that many adults with autism reported experiencing challenges with communication, sensory stimuli, and long wait times during healthcare experiences. So in conclusion, more research does need to be conducted on larger, more diverse sample sizes before results can be generalized. However, our research is a step in the right direction to enforce and encourage that adults with autism have a personal voice in regards to their healthcare experiences. Thank you guys all for coming to our presentation and the colloquium in general, and we are open to any questions you guys might have.
I forgot I was supposed to step in there. So you do have a question. This is from Lori, and she says, do you think increased awareness about autism has contributed to the level of satisfaction of individuals with regard to their healthcare experiences?
I think personally, I mean, my group members could jump in too, that definitely has played a factor. And all of the participants that reported their satisfaction rate talked about specifically their primary care provider. So they all seem to be very satisfied with their primary care provider, which is the person that they see every year and annually and probably most often. So I think that maybe if they reported other providers, it might have possibly not been as satisfied, but it's really nice to know that the person they see so often is the one that they're very satisfied with.
I also think that it's important to note that we did only have 5 participants. So in terms of kind of gaining more of a, I guess, diverse pool of participants would be important for future research so that we can truly see if this is truthful and that that there is a high satisfaction rate amongst this population.
I think it's also kind of important to note when we did our literature review, we did look at the perspective of healthcare providers. And although there is an increased awareness of autism, healthcare providers often reported that they still were not confident in treating this population. So I think even though our participants were satisfied, this, like Bree said, it might not speak to a larger population of those adults, but it's also kind of important to consider the healthcare provider's perspective that they still don't feel all too comfortable with treating.
Thank you all. And there's a few more questions here. So Kathy Post comments first, says, good answer, Megan. When you answered, Scott says, I love the topic. And Kathy's got a question. How do you think you might reach more people with ASD?
So I think with that, it would be important. I mean, COVID obviously has played in a major factor in this. And I think that moving forward, it could be important to physically go into maybe community settings or schools where you can access people that might not have immediate access or own a computer. So I think that's something that's really important to consider, or gain insight into the potential participants of whom might not be capable of, like I said, using the internet. So I think that that would be something to consider when in-person participation is more accessible, I guess.
And you've got comments from people saying such important work, great work. Another question, this is from Danielle Hoffner. Were the participants from Massachusetts area or elsewhere?
Go ahead.
Sorry. There were a few from Mass. Also, we had some responses from the Midwest and New York as well.
Thank you. Seems like another great opportunity to provide more training for healthcare providers, similar to the last group. Great topic. Love the presentation. And I've got a question for you all. What got you interested in this topic in the first place?
I think that the majority of us do want to work with the autism population in the future. So I think that that was the basis for a lot of our motivation to do this topic. And I think that, as everyone knows, a lot of people with autism have like the sensory issues. So we were curious to see how that would play a role or a factor in the very busy waiting rooms of healthcare experiences.
And I think in terms of coming up with our research question, we were primarily interested in those firsthand accounts of people, of experiences, personal experiences, rather than kind of hearing through a caregiver of whom can likely speak to how their child feels in certain scenarios, but might not be as accurate as someone that can speak for themselves. So I think that's that was a really important kind of interest in how we came up with our question as well.
And Corey loves it that you've got participants from different parts of the country. So that was kind of fun. You just don't know where people are going to respond from.
Elizabeth, I think we missed a question from Kate. She said, were there any suggestions from participants that surprised you?
Thank you. Thanks for noticing that.
I mean, personally, I was surprised that someone reported being anxious from having all of the instruments laid out and seeing them, because I personally get anxious from that too, and I never really thought about it like that. So that was something that surprised me.
Right. Well, thank you everybody for your questions, and thank you for your answers, and very well done. Thank you.
Yes, very well done. And that was the last presentation. Congratulations to all of you. Yikes. Yay. You got through it with flying colors, great presentations, fabulous responses to a great number of questions. And I have to thank the audience too for all the questions. They were very good questions. So it's always good to kind of have good questions to have you think about things in a slightly different manner. So nice job. I want you to know that this has been recorded and it will be on YouTube. So eventually I'll post the link in our research bright space. And let's see, as I mentioned, there's actually another impressive presentation that I'm going to put on now. And it is a video recording of a wonderful slideshow of a few of you from the group. The slideshow was put together by Rosalie Bowman, Olivia Longo, and Kate Capuano. And if I can share my screen, and please tell me, I did turn the sound on before, but I don't know if it goes off after a certain amount of time. So if you don't hear something quickly, or let's see, I need to go here and, oh, get out of the way. All right.
I wish somebody would have told me, babe, that someday these will be the good old days. All the love you won't forget, and all these reckless nights you won't regret. Someday soon your whole life's gonna change. You'll miss the magic of these good old days.
I was thinking about the band, I was thinking about the fans. We were underground, loading merch in that 12-passenger van, in a small club in Minnesota, and the snow outside of First Ave. I just wanted my name in a star. Now look at where we at, still growing up, still growing up. I would lay in my bed and dream about what I've become. Couldn't wait to get older, couldn't wait to be some. Now that I'm here, wishing I was still young. Those good old days.
I wish somebody would have told me, babe, that someday these would be the good old days. All the love you won't forget, and all these reckless nights you won't regret. Cause someday soon your whole life's gonna change. You'll miss the magic of the good old days.
Wish I didn't think I had the answers. Wish I didn't drink all of that blast first. Wish I made it to homecoming, got up the courage to ask her. Wish I would've gotten out of my shell. Wish I put the bottle back on that shelf. Wish I wouldn't have worried about what other people thought and felt comfortable with myself. Rooftop open, and the stars above. Moment frozen, sneaking out and falling in love. Me, you, and that futon, we just begun. On the grass dreaming, figuring out who I was. Those good old days.
I wish somebody would have told me, babe,
maybe we're still young. Maybe you always look back and think it was better than it was. Maybe these are the moments. Maybe I've been missing what it's about. Been scared of the future, thinking about the past while missing out on now. We've come so far, I guess I'm proud. And I ain't worried about the wrinkles around my smile. I got some scars, I've been around. I felt some pain, I've seen some things, but I'm here now. Those good old days.
You don't know what you got till it goes, till it's gone. You don't know what you got till it goes, till it's gone.
May you have auspiciousness and causes of success. May you have the confidence to always do your best. May you take no effort in your being generous, sharing what you can, nothing more, nothing less. May you know the meaning of the word happiness. May you always lead from the beating in your chest. May you be treated like an esteemed guest. May you get to rest, may you catch your breath. May the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows. Whoa. May the road less paved be the road that you follow. Oh, well, here's to the hearts that you're gonna break. Here's to the lives that you're gonna change. Here's to the infinite possible ways to love you. I want you to have it. Here's to the good times we're gonna have. You don't need money, got a free pass. Here's to the fact that I'll be sad without you. I want you to have it all. As a slap bracelet, may you keep the chaos and the clutter off your desk. May you have unquestionable health and less stress. Having no possessions, though immeasurable wealth. May you get a gold star on your next test. May your educated guesses always be correct.
That was fabulous.
Wow.
Absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Tears are starting already. It's too
They
early.
are.
I missed you guys.
Can I just say something really quick? First of all, thank you to the three of you who helped put this together. I love the slideshow. And I think it really highlights how close of a group you are. And despite the chaos of the last year and a half, you guys still managed to have fun, even while being in a very demanding, rigorous program. So kudos to you guys. And there's still 88 people here, and there's still something that we have to do before we close this ceremony. And so I see that the students are going missing. And it's because we do want to recognize Corey and Joni for a minute here, as we know they are retiring this summer. And we want to show our appreciation for them and all of their years of service to the program, because we love you guys. So I'm going to hand it over to the students.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. Now I'm going to cry. Thank you, guys.
I am. Oh.
Welcome to the world of retirement. Thank you, Kat.
Oh.
So we also just wanted to say something. So Corey, I'll speak for you. So words alone can't express how much your actions and teachings have influenced our academic career. Under your guidance, we've not only become better students, but also better future occupational therapists. You've demonstrated the ability to show up as your authentic self despite the challenges that this past year has brought, which is an example of the strength and determination that we all hope to emulate in our future careers. Thank you for sharing your gift of teaching with us.
And I'm going to say something about Joni. So Joni, thank you for everything you've done for us and for this program. Your commitment, compassion, and energy are so inspiring to us all. You've put your heart and soul into building this program, as well as helped to shape us into the wonderful OTs we'll be one day. You've been an amazing role model, and we're so grateful to have had the opportunity to learn from you. Thank you for being you, and you will be so missed.
We love you guys.
Somebody else finish. I can't talk anymore.
Well, I think we're all speechless because of the tears.
My Kleenex is too far away.
Well, Joni, you can get your tears out now. It's just.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Even though the two of you are still teaching until the end of the summer session, I want to say I appreciated working with the two of you all this time, and to the students to let you know that with Joni and Corey leaving, this is really passing the program.
It is.
To the entire next generation. Yeah. From when Joni started the program in April 1989, and then hired Ellen, and then Corey, and then me. And it's just, it's been an amazing ride with you guys. And so I wish you all the best in your retirement. And I expect to see you on a regular basis because you'll have time to play with me.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I expect you to teach me how to renovate my entire house.
No, I expect her to come over to mine and renovate it.
Next generation, yes, but the three of you are so ingrained in the program and such an integral part. You remain the heart of this program, and you will remain the heart of this program. And, you know, we're sad to see you go, but we're so blessed to have, you know, had all of your legacies here at Springfield College that we can pass down to this next generation. So thank you.
Well, the program is in very good hands with all of you who are teaching there and staying.
It is
for the immediate future.
It is in good hands. We were lucky to get a second generation instituted. So yeah. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for all the kind words. And yeah.
Going to be another summer of tears.
Yeah. Definitely will be. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Make sure you guys read the chat so you can cry some more.
No, sorry, can't read it now.
Good thing it's being
recorded. I will. All right, and we'll see everyone